Instead of having 10,000 pounds in command, money was so scarce at Longwood until countless causes made over 4,000 pounds to Count Bertrand in December 1816 that the latter has been so reduced as to be glad to accept a loan of so small sums as a sum of 25 pounds for myself. Whilst I was in St. Helena, the discounting of the bills which Bertrand drew was frequently retarded by Sir Hudson Lowe for 2 months at a time. This might probably have been intended to operate upon the French domestics, already so disgusted by the restrictions, the isolated state in which they were placed, secluded from society, and the badness of the climate, in order to render them still more so by the want of their wages, and thus compel them to abandon their master. This inference is greatly strengthened by what has taken place since my departure. I have been credibly informed and have seen official documents to prove that since November 1818, Sir Hudson Lowe has given orders that no more bills of exchange should be discounted for the French, alleging as a pretext for such conduct that they must wait until he receives intimation from England that the last bill drawn by them has been honored, that is to say, for 5 months. Now it is well known that although momentary difficulties have arisen in the payment of some of them, yet they have been ultimately paid by countless causes, and that their future payment has been also guaranteed to Messrs. Baring and Company by one of the first bankers of Frankfurt. On the 13th of January, 1819, a demand was made by General Montsalon through Captain Nichols, the orderly officer at Longwood, to Sir Hudson Lowe. First, either that Mr. Ibbotson, the commissary general, should be allowed to discount their bills monthly, as he had been in the habit of doing since April 1818, or that, according to Lord Bathurst's letter, some commercial house should be permitted to communicate with them and to discount their bills of exchange. Second, or that the English government, pursuant to the engagements which it had made, should provide with their own money for the expenses already described. Third, that if the governor refuses to comply with these propositions, he may authorize some merchant to come to Longwood to purchase the remains of the plate belonging to Napoleon. None of these proposals have been complied with, and the distress produced by Sir Hudson Lowe's refusal has been excessive. To shut up families composed of persons advanced in life, of ladies and young children, in a prison upon an island near 6,000 miles from their friends, to deprive them of the means of attaining their own money in order to provide for their wants, to refuse to supply those wants, either in kind or by lending money to purchase them, and to deny the prisoners permission to sell their valuables to procure it. It is, I believe, without a parallel in the history of England until now, or of any other nation in the world. It was doubtless a similar line of policy that dictated the taking away from Mr. Barber of the Cambridge store ship in February 1818 to portraits of young Napoleon, which he had brought out to sell to the father, meanly pretending that the reason he took them was to send them himself to Bonaparte, but in reality to prevent a father's having an opportunity of retracing the lineaments of an only and a beloved son, for the pictures never reached Longwood. The story of the knee buckles, Mr. Warden, and General Gourgaud is so little germane to the matter, as our author observes in the beginning of this book, and without so indicative of a mountain in labor, that the reader will no doubt gladly dispense with any comment upon such superlative niaiseries. It is besides a curious fact that cowards, when they are not personally concerned, always require more to be done by others than brave men would under similar circumstances. Without having been able to discover quite so much of Napoleon's peculiarities as the author, I am fully justified in flatly contradicting his assertion about the wine glasses. This novel sort of amusement appears more likely to have been adopted at some of the bacchanalian orgies at Plantation House. It is well known that the French do not drink wine after dinner, that Bonaparte is particularly temperate, and that everything is removed from the table in less than half an hour. from the time of his sitting down how Sir Hudson Lowe could be informed of Napoleon's actions while alone. It is for the author, who is doubtless in the Lieutenant General's confidence, to explain. Page 36 is ushered in with another tissue of misrepresentation not less palpable than others contained in the whole compilation. In the first place, the cook did not go to Longwood to complain. He went contrary to directions from General Montholon to demand from Sir Hudson Lowe whether a letter from Count Bertrand to Cardinal Fesch containing a request that another cook might be sent out to St. Helena, as his own health and that of his assistant had been so much impaired by the climate as to render any farther residence in it dangerous for them, had it been forwarded, and when his successor might be expected, having taken this step upon himself in direct opposition to the orders he had received, and having also, after his interview with Sir Hudson Lowe, been guilty of some impertinence to General Montholon, he was dismissed from his situation, but remained some days at Longwood without, however, officiating in his former employment of cook.